Houston!
Hey, I'm not dead. What's going on?
Who are you and what are you doing here?
Hey, well, take it easy, calm down. I revived you.
What are you doing here?
Well, there was this guy that was trying to get in with his bat, so I took it from him, banished him, and then I came in to help you.
How do people keep finding me?
It wasn't hard, really. I hear you're good at crafting.
Yeah? Why?
Well, I thought you can help me out with a weapon.
Like what?
A sword made of 6 individual swords that come together in fusion.
Like a fusion sword?
Yeah, that's it.
It sounds impossible. And like a lot.
Don't worry. I have faith in you.
Sure. I'll see what I can dish up. This is Kai's D.I.Ys.
Now, just like Kingdom Hearts, I know absolutely nothing about Final Fantasy. All that I do really know is that there's this character called Cloud with blonde hair and who wields a giant sword. You should be struggling with that, man. I'd expect you to have the body of Arnie to hold that kind of thing. But since it's fantasy, I guess he can hold it. And somewhere along the lineup of games, he gets a new sword composed of 6 other swords. The main one that wraps around on the front, 2 that go on the back, and 2 go on the sides. So in order to actually build this thing, we're going to need low cost and pretty much low weight materials to build this. But first, we gotta measure. And I would also like to thank the person that did request this build to be made. Thank you so much for all of that. So one of my biggest concerns with this build was how exactly I was going to be able to put it together. It brought me to 3 different questions on how this build was going to work. A, how far do I have to go? B, how exactly am I going to keep this so lightweight and put together? And C, why in the world does Cloud need 6 swords to combine into one? I mean, why doesn't he just keep it 1 sword? I mean, it's just a sword. But when I did fully have all my thoughts put together, I came up with this. Alright, now that my brain is completely fried from thinking too much, let's go ahead and build this thing.
Here's what you're going to need for this project. 3 foam core poster boards, 1 sheet of 5mm craft foam, sandpaper, super glue, neodymium magnets, silver, black, and clear gloss spray paint, 2 cans of Plasti-Dip, 2 feet of 1/2-inch PVC, 3 feet of 3/4 inch PVC, 4 wooden dowels that are 4 feet long and 7/16 inches in diameter, and 2 rolls of 2mm craft foam. I used a lot of photos as reference and guessed some measurements on the sword. I'm first going to start on the main sword. Using one of the wooden dowels and the 3/4 inch PVC, I measured and cut the PVC, which will be the main handle of this piece, at 16 inches, as 3 inches of it will need to be inside of the box. Then by using the handle piece, I pushed it into some scrap floor mat foam to make some rings which will help hold the wooden dowel in the PVC handle. Next, I took one of the foam boards and gauged half of the sword on it. Based on this picture I found off the internet, I was able to understand the size of this thing. Thanks, DeviantArt. I drew out half the sword with a 4-inch slant and continued drawing upward, reaching the tip of the sword with more of the foam board. 1/2 done, leaving me to deal with the other side. Keep in mind, based on the measurements, I had to remove some to make it the right size. Now before I glue the foam board pieces on the dowel, I need to reduce the size of the front and back face, otherwise it would bulk out of the blade. Once that was done, I had all the pieces cut out and I can hot glue them to the sides that aren't sanded. I tried my best to make them as even as possible. I then took one of the other dowels and marked how much I need at the top. Then I sanded the flat faces and glued it in place.
This thing is way too big.
I then took one of the rolls of craft foam and rolled it out on my floor because this is a lot of foam. I placed the sword on the foam and traced the outline of it, but made sure to cut out more than I needed. I cut out 2 pieces which will cover both sides. Now before I glue the foam on, I need to put the magnets on. I'm using magnets with adhesive backings which didn't really help me. I first laid down where I think the magnets should go, marked them, and glued them on using super glue. The amount of magnets I used was not enough to hold the pieces together, so keep in mind you should use more magnets or stronger magnets. I then used contact cement to glue the first half of the sword on. Contact cement works like this. Paint it on both areas you want to glue together. Wait for it to mostly dry and get sticky, then you can glue them together. After the first side is on, I cut off most of the extra foam, but left a little bit of it stick out so I can glue the edges together and make the bevel. Unfortunately, my first attempt to make the bevels got ruined. I sanded off more than I needed to, which exposed most of the foam board, so I cut out 2 more layers and glue over the first, and added these detailed holes on the sword. After more sanding, it still looked pretty rough, so I smoothed it out by using some quick seal and let it dry for 24 hours. Once dry, I sanded it a little to smooth out any imperfections. Now onto the hollow blade. This sword looks cool, but it's a pain in the booty. I first started by drawing the basic shape of the bottom half of the blade on the foam board. The blade will have a 1-inch bevel, a 1-inch wide handle, and the rest of the body is 3.5 inches. The top half has a slant with a 6-inch gap. I need to cut out 2 of them to make both sides. On the side with the magnets for the front blade, I set the magnets on the main blade and then push the half of the front blade into it to make an indent. I cut out some holes and put the magnets in. I am then able to glue the tops and bottoms of this blade together by using some popsicle sticks to reinforce the bond. Along these lines, you'll need to cut halfway through them to bend them. Do not cut all the way through the board. I used some wood to reinforce the handle of the blade. You could use paint sticks, but I ended up using a thick piece of wood and cutting it thinner. It still works both ways. Once I did that, I used some scrap foam and stacked up 4 random pieces individually to make the thickness of the blade. I had to make multiple stacks of these by gluing many small pieces together. The stacks will go on the inside of the blade to help hold the 2 halves together. But before I did that, I didn't want the inside of this blade to be white. I wanted to add a feel of depth, so I used black acrylic paint to paint inside only. Sadly, after doing this, the halves bowed. I think a better alternative would be to use black paper and glue it in. However, I was able to glue both halves together with no major problems. Going back to the roll of foam, I traced out and cut pieces that will go over this piece. I cut off where the handle is and stuck some scrap 5mm foam where the bevel is. This didn't work so well. I ended up sanding it anyway and covering the entire bevel with quick seal. Moving on to the next blades and letting this dry for 24 hours. This is the easiest sword out of all of them. Taking the last 2 dowels and measuring how much material I need, I mark how much of the handle I'll need. 1 foot. That's my handle. I cut the 2 feet of 1/2-inch PVC in half and set them aside. Above the handle line, I need 3 inches of foam board and 1.5 inches of 5mm craft foam for the main blade of this piece. Like the main blade, I need to sand the faces on the front and back of the dowel. Finding the middle of this blade, I can mark where to put the dowel. I can then glue it in and glue the craft foam on the front. I can then mark 1 inch of the craft foam. I also used some of the 3/4 inch PVC pipe to make indents every inch on the craft foam to make the little teeth on the blade. I marked 7 half circles, or ovals, from the top, and 4 inches below that, I mark an 11.25 inch long dip that goes 3/4 inches deep. I sanded the blade to a bevel and cut out the design. Lay down the magnets on the blade to find where they go on this one, mark them, and cut a divot to glue them in. Using some thin foam, I covered the magnet on the blade portion. More craft foam again, but this time make it 3.5 inches wide. But remember to let it hang, to have more than less foam to work with. Repeat once again, but flip the magnets where to go, and your back blades are assembled. Now, on to the last 2 and the most frustrating pieces of this build. Using the entire last foam board, I drew out the blade after cutting out 2 of them. I now had to brainstorm how to make the swivel handle. I used a scrap piece of foam board and tested a fitting for this round section. Once I had the correct fitting, I used it to trace the top of the middle section of the handle. 2 more on the sides will cover the middle piece. I then took a long, complicated process to draw out the compass piece. Here's for you to look at. I traced and cut out the compass and a circle of the same size as the base of the compass to go on the opposite side of the handle. I cut a channel for the small piece of the wire to go through and make the handle swivel. I used thin wood to go on the inside of the handle and the outside of the main sword piece. This will help prevent it from breaking. However, sadly, my handle wiggles instead of staying straight and solid, but that's okay. I glue the handle together, cover the handle, the compass, the back circle, and the blade with more foam. Assemble the handle to the blade by bending the wire, placing the wire through the handle and the blade. Cut the extra wire off and bend the other end. Cover both ends with glue and more foam. Repeat, and the side blades are done. I take the leftover 5mm craft foam and trace a hex bolt's head on it 22 times and cut them out. I glue them to the front faces of the side blades like this. I then take all the blades I made and measure how tall the box should be. My box ended up being 3.5 inches tall, 10 inches wide, with nearly 4 3/4 inch walls on the sides. I made a bottom and marked the middle where the handle of the main blade will come through. I added a platform on the top that will help hold the swords together. I marked on the main blade handle where the front blade drops to and cut the section out to make room for the front blade. After assembling the box, I made little panels that go on the faces of the box. Then by using a smaller hex bolt, I traced the head on more 5mm craft foam and cut out and glue 16 of them that go on the big sides only. Time to paint everything. Everything foam gets 2 coats of Plastidip. Plastidip is a vinylized rubber that works very well on foam because it's open and porous. That'll also help the paint stick to the foam much better. After the Plastidip dries, I use silver spray paint on all of the blades and the box. After that dries, a layer of clear gloss will seal the silver spray paint. I cover the bottoms of the 1/2 inch pipe with more foam, and using foam and tape, I slide the pipe over the dowel for the back blades. I rolled some 2mm craft foam over the handle and added 1.5 inch strips on the top and bottom. In between them are 1 inch strips glued in place. Plastidipped and sprayed in black spray paint will finish the handles of the back blades. Black acrylic paint on the handle of the side blades and gold acrylic paint on the circles of the compass will finish these. Using the last 13.5 inches of the 3/4 inch PVC pipe, I cut it in half for the handle on the front blade. Taking some leftover floor mat foam, gluing rings cut in half inside of the half pipe will help it stick better to the front blade's handle section. I then took some leftover red leather that I had from another costume and wrapped the main blade handle and the front blade handle in it for extra flair. One last detail, a ring for the bottom of the box and the end of the main handle will finish off this entire project. Boom, done. Oh gosh, this project was so long and difficult.
Say something before we give Cloud his sword back. So at this point, I should probably confess. This whole entire project was very difficult. I didn't fully think of how I was going to get this thing to stay together. The multiple mistakes that I made is that I didn't use enough magnets, so I guess you could probably see this tutorial as more of how to build the individual swords rather than combining them together. So instead of just sticking them together, I had to bolt mine together pretty much, which is actually something that I wanted to avoid. If you noticed anything that I could have done differently, please don't hesitate, let me know, and I can probably improve on them. Now with that being said, there is another video on YouTube that shows you how to make the entire blade, but you can't take it apart. I'll leave a link to that in the description if you want to check it out for yourself. I will be making a Patreon page probably by the time I upload this video, which you can donate as little as $1 a month in order for me to actually keep making these props and to make more videos as I go on. And you guys are amazing with responses, with views, even subscribing. Thank you so much for all of that. And if you have any requests for me to make something, please just leave them in the comments below. Tell me what you think of this video, and go ahead and subscribe and like this video. And if you would like to know any updates on projects that I'm doing in the future, please consider following me on Twitter and even my Facebook page. I'll be mostly posting on my Facebook page. And consider sharing this with every one of your Final Fantasy friends. Alright, let's give Cloud his sword.
Alright.
Here you go.
Alright. Thank you so much. I'll be forever in your debt.
Hey, wait,
Yes?
can you exactly explain how you revived me?
Oh, I have the supplies of Phoenix Downs and a book of spells and cheat codes.
Okay, could I possibly have one of those pages?
I don't know.
No, I'm not gonna do anything bad. I just want to see what there is to offer.
Okay. Here you go.
Thanks. Hey, wait a minute. You're Cloud from Final Fantasy VII, right?
Yeah.
And you used a Phoenix Down to revive me.
Yes?
Yeah. So why exactly did you use a Phoenix Down on me and not on your friend Aerith? Alrighty. So, kun sabe hutsiana uchompe. Nothing? I thought I did it right.